All right, guys, today inside our on-cue structured wiring enclosure, what we're going to be talking about is our Tripp-Lite AV550SC, our backup power block for our router and our modem and our switches in this building. This guy apparently needs a new battery, and it's not something that's user serviceable. Tripp-Lite doesn't sell the batteries for it, but I'm going to show you how we can crack it open and change that battery anyway. There is a self-test with the on-off switch. If you hold this guy in for 3 seconds, it'll perform a self-test. I expect it to fail, but let's give that a shot. If you press it for 1 second, it shuts it off, but we're going to hold it for 3. 1, 2, 3. And that should initiate the self-test. We just got a red light here flashing, which is for checking the battery. So we just confirmed that the reason it failed to provide backup power was the battery has failed. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and power it off. And we're going to remove it from the unit here and disassemble it. All right, guys, as you can see on this unit, there's really no user serviceable ports. So what we're going to have to do is disassemble it by removing all of these Phillips head screws. It's basically 2 sheet metal halves that come together. And when we take all these screws out, we should be able to separate them and see what kind of sealed lead acid type battery this thing takes and find something equivalent in voltage and amp hours, and particularly the size and the type of terminals that it will use. All right, so we're going to take these 5 off the top. I'm pretty sure we can leave these 2 because they probably are just holding this connector block. So there's nothing on the side with the plugs, and there's nothing on this side. This side, what you have here under this sticker is a port to plug a computer in, right? So we don't need to worry about that. So we're going to flip it over here on the bottom, and we'll take these 3 on the perimeter here off. And then there's also a 4th one on the perimeter up under the sticker for that diagnostic port we just showed. That we will need to get off. So we'll take an X-Acto knife. Go ahead and cut this warranty sticker. This thing's well out of warranty. Just so that we can get this screw right here off. All right, guys, when you get this little screw out of the security tape area, you'll notice that it's a unique size. It's a little longer and a little bigger than all the others, so make sure you keep it separated so you don't lose it. And you want to make sure, like I said, that you don't take the 4 in the middle out because they're holding a bracket that we don't want rattling around and hitting the circuit board. All right, so we got one I missed here, where it says the word router. I didn't notice it with the writing. So this should be our last screw. Yep, okay. So we're going to push this forward. Then we're going to slide it back, and then it should lift up. There we go. All right, so until we disconnect the battery, you still don't want to touch these boards. You can get shocked, because remember, the battery power is being converted to AC power unless it's completely dead. So let's first de-energize that, and then now it's safe. All right, so this is the battery that Tripp-Lite originally used, Yuasa NP512, 12 volt, 5 amp hour. If we pull the data sheet for that battery, which I've already done, we can see the size here at a glance in millimeters. 90 millimeters long, 70 millimeters wide, and 105 millimeters tall. And again, it's a 5 amp hour rating, 12 volt overall. Now, you could get a battery very similar to this. You won't really find an NP512 on Amazon or something like that, but you can find no-name knockoffs. But I'd recommend you don't do that. We can take these specs and we can find a battery that is what's called a high-rate battery, and I'll show you the one I went with, but I'll also put some other ones in the description that I didn't go with. I went with PowerSonic's high-rate battery. A high-rate battery is specifically designed for a UPS application, an uninterruptible power supply, like what this one is. And what we see on the specs for this guy, the particular one that we're going to be going with here, let me see if I can highlight it for you guys. right here, this 1255 FR. It's 12 volts, and we're going to get 6 amp hours out of it. It's 90 millimeters in length. And again, if we split these, we can see, so the length's identical. It's 70 millimeters wide, so the width's identical, and it's 107 millimeters high. So for just 2 extra millimeters, we're going to pick up an extra amp hour and a much higher rated battery. I picked this up off of Amazon. Just comes in a plain box like this. Another thing that's important with these that I should point out, I don't think they say it on their spec sheet because it can come both ways, but there's 2 kinds of terminals that you can find on these batteries. There's a small one that's called an F1 or fast on 1, and a larger one like this that's called an F2. And these larger terminals, you can see, are just a little bit over 6 millimeters in width. So that's another criteria for selecting the battery, and that's what we get with this PowerSonic one that I ultimately ended up going with. So it's just a hair difference in overall width. You can't even tell. I mean, the case is actually looks about exactly the same. The width difference is just the terminal height. But you can see here now we're going to pick up 6 amp hours and a high rate UPS rated battery. So this will give us longer life when we're having to do backup power. So all we have to do to swap this out is reverse what we did. And you can see, just hooking up the positive terminal here first, you can see this bracket here. That's why we left those 4 screws in, because we didn't want this coming loose and rattling around the circuit board. And then just come over here, and again, just make sure you don't come in contact with the circuit board. Set this guy back in the bracket here, and if we look on this side, this non-conductive here, you can see the battery just sits right on this part of that bracket, and then the other edge right on this part of that bracket. And that's it, guys. Now we just put the cover back on. There's really no rocket science to this. I don't know why they don't make a battery for this. Actually, you can see you got to get past this component on this board first. There's going to be a little bit of a trick to it. There we go. So what it is that little component that's right there. There's a lip on the sheet metal right here. So you've got to get it manually positioned or it won't clear it. And then we're just going to put the screws back in. I would suggest you start with these 2 in the middle because they're the opposite side of that bracket that holds the battery. And that'll help get everything centered to put the others in. And then hook everything back up, leave it connected for 12 hours at least, and then retry your battery test, and it should pass just fine. And the next time you have an outage with this particular PowerSonic battery, and again, I'll put a link in the description, but that was the 1255 FR, you'll get extra longer life from your devices so you can handle a longer blackout or a longer power out before the juice runs out. I hope this helps you out and show you how you can change this battery yourself and this doesn't end up in a landfill. It's perfectly possible to do your own service on these. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave a comment below and I'll try to help out. If you found this did save you some time or money or it was useful, please take a moment to hit that like button. It helps with the discovery of the video. I'd really appreciate it. And otherwise, thanks for watching.